3 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome aboard the Postgame Show. Alongside Elijah Campbell, I'm Jay Phillips. Appreciate you being with us. We got a lot to get to on today's program. Guest heavy on the show today. Our good friend Matt Moscona, ESPN Radio, Baton Rouge, and New Orleans, Louisiana, will join us despite the hurricane coming. Matt is going to give it a go. He and I texted back and forth. When was that, Elijah? About an hour and a half ago, give or take?
Yeah, something like that.
Matt was like, "No, let's do it. I'm ready."
I have heard if you yell at a hurricane enough, it will bend to your will.
Typically, yes. Typically.
From around here.
Yeah,
yes,
that's what a lot of people around here will get out. And now I've told the story before. We had a guy, I think it was when Carolina had to postpone the Georgia game by a day. We had a guy call. And why can't they just wait until? And I was like, dude, why don't you go yell at the hurricane? He was like, I said, do you understand they're running a small city every day when they have a Southeastern Conference football game? And when Georgia's coming to town, just like when Clemson comes to town, there's about 20,000 additional people that just want to be there, that know they aren't going into the game. They're not even really trying to get a ticket, but because it is such an atmosphere, they just want to be a part of it. You got all these law enforcement officials. You got all these paramedics. You know, and it's like they're not really, they should have waited until Friday afternoon because apparently, well, what if it doesn't? I'm like, that ain't how it works, bro. But again, if you want to get mad, go out and yell at the hurricane.
The hurricane's the intruder here. That's the uninvited party.
Let me know how that works out for you. But this guy, man, he was serious. And I was like, you're doing it way wrong.
He's inspired me. Next one, I'm going to yell at it. We're going to see how it works out.
I'm pulling for you, man. Listen, if we all got together collectively and yelled at the hurricane, okay.
Strength in numbers.
Yeah. Let's all stand on the Grand Strand, or if it's further south, down along, Folly Beach and IOP and see what happens, man. I'm here for it. Edisto, y'all just start screaming.
More good players, more better yellers.
Yeah.
I think if we do that, we can accomplish some great things.
Enough carbon dioxide is emitted from us that it alters the atmosphere, and that hurricane says, "Whoa, okay, I don't want to go there."
It says, "All right, just kidding.
Yeah,
not welcomed here."
All right, sorry, I'll head somewhere else. My bad. But Matt will join us coming up in a bit. So looking forward to talking with him once again. Good to see him at Media Days a couple of months back. 4 o'clock hour, our good friend David Cloninger, fresh off a trip to Washington, D.C. to solve our nation's problems. Hope it worked.
I'm sure it did.
Well, David, the one thing about David is he doesn't like to give his opinion very often. So I don't know that he went up there.
He's a little shy.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Maybe they worked it out of him.
Yeah. So he took him to a back room. Sir, do you have an opinion on this?
Sir, we know you do. You're hiding it behind.
I want to believe that David was wearing a Rock Hill, like Football Town, USA kind of shirt.
I was hoping he'd wear jorts.
I don't think David wears jorts. He certainly wears shorts from time.
But for the occasion.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't normally do it either, but, for the occasion.
I can't do the jort, my man. Sorry.
Yeah, I can't either, but for the occasion.
Yeah. And I think the last time I wore shorts made of jeans, I was a tyke, and it's because my mama had made cutoffs.
I guess she made them for you.
Yeah. Otherwise, that's...
Wasn't happening.
Yeah. Nothing. If you wear jorts, that's cool. I'm not here to judge. I just can't do the jort.
Not our style.
Nope.
But for the occasion.
Florida fans do.
It can.
Do you want me to hit you with some trivia real quick?
Oh, I love trivia. I love trivia, Jay. You know,
I could make this in the form of a question, but it's you just wouldn't. It's too hard. So I'm not going to do it that way. And I saw this on the Twitters, and I verified it though, so it is accurate. Saturday when A&M visits Florida. So we'll add some days because of where today is. But when on Saturday, when A&M visits Florida, before kickoff, because I don't know what's going to happen yet. That's why they play games. It will have been 1,065 days since the Texas A&M Aggie football program won a true road game. They did win a bowl game. but they have not won a true road game since October 16th, 2021 at Missouri. That's the last time they have won a true road game. They didn't win a road game in all of 22, all of 23. This will be their first road game this season. So it's been a long time since they won a road game, man.
Well, I think that falls under the umbrella of underperforming and being really disappointing over the last few years that you can't get any wins away from Kyle Field.
But they beat Missouri that day in Como 35-14. So it was a resounding victory the last time they did it.
Well, hopefully they made it last.
Well, we'll see. They are slight favorites. We find out tonight from Billy Napier. Well, actually, we find out tonight via the University of Florida's availability report.
So probably the trainers.
As to whether or not Graham Mertz has been cleared to play. We do know Graham Mertz went through practice yesterday. Don't know. I assume he had a practice today as well, if he could practice yesterday. But I know because Andy Staples on his show this morning made mention of the fact that Mertz did indeed practice. But today in the SEC coaches availability, or excuse me, I got that on the brain now, in the SEC coaches teleconference, Billy Napier doubled down on the 2-quarterback system at Florida if Graham Mertz is ready to go. But again, did not commit to Graham being ready to play yet. He's in concussion protocol, if you're wondering. He got hurt against Miami. DJ Lagway played last week, and he did fine, but it was against Samford. He better have done fine, and he did. You and I yesterday had that kind of we need a Pepto-Bismol look on our face when we talked about Billy wanting to commit to the 2-quarterback system. You don't. If your starter's ready to go, you need to play your starter. Now, like you said, if he goes out there and has a bad day, and you need to make a change, but you would have done that anyway.
At least you've been a little shorter.
Yeah, I mean, even if let's say Graham Mertz didn't have a concussion, and he's the one who did everything last week against Samford, but this weekend he went out and threw 3 interceptions in the first half. I might still be yanking him. That's not a 2. The way Billy's talking about it, again, it's like we're going to alternate series, or are we going to alternate quarters, or are we going to alternate snaps? Like what are we? But he's, I don't know. I think it's a bad idea. It reeks of
desperation.
It's something beyond desperation, because again, it's unnecessary. It's great again, like you and I talked about. Graham Mertz is a good quarterback. He's not electrifying, but he's a good quarterback.
He's slightly above replacement level in the SEC.
Yeah. I mean, he's good, man.
With weapons around him,
So, anyway, but we'll talk to DC and the 4 o'clock. Again, Matt coming up in just a few minutes here. Matt goes on the air at 4 o'clock our time, so we're going to talk to him coming up inside of 10 minutes so we can let him go finish his show prep and get the latest on what's going on with LSU, how big a game this is for them. Look, all of LSU's goals are in front of them. Yes, they lost the opener to Southern California. So technically, I suppose if one of the goals was to be undefeated, then that one has sailed. But beyond that, this is their first conference game. LSU is the type of program, as all of you know, that has, at least for a large portion of their fan base, a very high level of expectation. There are some LSU fans, and I get it, and I wouldn't disagree with them, who you don't expect to win the national championship every year, but you certainly expect to be in that conversation every year. It's almost a given that you need to be in the SEC championship conversation. But LSU, I think you and I discussed this before, they're the kind of school, in today's SEC, including Texas and Oklahoma. And again, I don't put Texas in that conversation, despite the year Texas seems to be having. But Oklahoma, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, I would put Florida there because of what Florida has at its disposal. But LSU and Florida have that in common. They often underperform relative to resources. I don't think that Georgia and Alabama, typically at least, do not underperform relative to resource or expectation. And I would put Oklahoma in that boat. There are times when Oklahoma has. And let's see what Oklahoma does. They didn't have a great weekend last week, but that's But for LSU, everything is there. They've got a couple of pretty big injuries, but they are also loaded with talent. They will come in here obviously expecting to win. And as you and I talked yesterday, and we'll discuss with Matt, they will see what South Carolina still struggles with offensively, which seemingly is both protection and opening up consistent lanes for runners to pass through. Again, Kentucky last week had 12 tackles for loss against the Gamecock offense. That's a concern. That's a thing. And LSU, they're better than Kentucky on the lines of scrimmage. Now, Kentucky's D-line is great.
Yes, they're better on one line of scrimmage.
Yeah. And collectively perhaps from a depth perspective, but because Kentucky had a few D linemen that were out last week. Mm-hmm. And we know that Guillory for LSU is done for the season, and he was a starter at D tackle. So, again, there's one piece. But, again, all of LSU's goals are in front of them, Elijah. And that's I'm not saying that's a recipe for anything other than LSU doesn't come in here hanging any kind of head, or at least if they do, that's on them. It's not because the Southern Cal loss. It's a good game. It's a good game. You lost to a good team. That's not keeping you out of the playoff if you do your job.
Yeah, and it hasn't kept them from having really good seasons the last 4 years prior to this one where they lost the first game.
Right.
And, like the last couple of years, they've had pretty solid teams despite losing the first game, one of which was an SEC West championship winning season. At this point, losing the opener is the Brian Kelly LSU rite of passage that you get to experience every year. But this team is very interesting because I think you got a good taste of what's still not right with that defense, considering, how much Nicholls State was able to move the ball on the ground on them. And you also have a good taste of what the offense could be because even in the Southern Cal game, they were able to throw the ball around the yard pretty well. Garrett Nussmeier, he's not chucking it all over the place, but he's been consistent. He's been completing a high percentage of passes, and they've got really good, talented, skill position players. LSU's also interesting because they don't have anybody else in the running back room. They lost Emery for the year, and they have like 2 scholarship running backs, and I think they have moved to safety over into the running back room, a guy who originally played quarterback in high school. So there's been an interesting evolution of what's happening in LSU's running back room right now. Oh, and they also have 2 guys for their bookend tackles that are potential All-Americans. Will Campbell might be one of the 3, 4, 5 best, left tackles in all of college football, if not the. He's only given up. Shane dropped the stat yesterday. He's given up 3 sacks.
I believe he's the high, at least in terms of how ESPN rates players. He's the highest rated offensive lineman in the country. And I think he's number 6 overall in college football. And
in 35 pass protection snaps this year, he has not given up 1 hurry. He has not given up 1 quarterback hit. As a whole for this LSU team, with all of Garrett Nussmeier's dropbacks this year, he's only been hit in the pocket twice.
Right.
It's a pretty good offensive line. It may not be like LSU of past where you have a Jaden Daniels or a Joe Burrow that's putting up these electrifying numbers and they're just a visual astonishment element to watching them, but they're at least really efficient on that side of the ball too. So there's going to be some really interesting strength versus strength stuff I'm excited to get into.
Dow Loggins and Clayton White spoke today as well. We'll get you that. And we got more sound from Gamecock players and even a little holdover from what Coach Beamer had to say yesterday. But we'll come back on the other side. Our good friend Matt Moscona, ESPN Baton Rouge, New Orleans, joins us on the other side of the break to give us his take on the Tigers coming here to take on the Gamecocks. You're listening to the Postgame Show.
Quick word, my friends over at Columbia Secret for Weight Loss. They have now celebrated over a year here in the Midlands. They came here last August, and they have helped so many people, like myself, achieve their weight loss goals. And last month, they celebrated by doing a buy one, get one package where you can do or go through the Columbia Secret Weight Loss Program with a friend or a family member, well, they've extended that. Up to September 30th, you can hop in and have your weight loss journey and experience it with a friend or a family member by using Columbia Secret for Weight Loss, getting coaching from my friends over with Paul Grant and Shaylin. They do a fantastic job, did wonders with me. They can do the same thing with you, and they can do all of this without any shots, without any pills, but fantastic coaching and helping you get into habits that create a more sustainable living and keeping that weight off. That interests you? Give them a call. 803-824-4210. Again, that's 803-824-4210 or ColumbiaSecretForWeightLoss.com. Results may vary.
Nineteen minutes after 3 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back into the Postgame Show. Along with Elijah Campbell, I'm Jay Phillips. Appreciate you being with us. Matt Moscona in just a second. About an hour from now, our good friend David Cloninger will join us. Sound from Gamecock coordinators Dowell Loggins and Clayton White as well. So a lot to get to after those guys have spoken. And again, ahead of a really big game this Saturday at Williams-Brice. Always a pleasure to see Matt Moscona every summer at SEC Media Days, and we get him on talking a little football, a little baseball throughout the year on many occasions. And right now they are weathering the storm quite literally out your way. How are you, sir?
Hey, Jay, I'm good, man. Yeah, not terrible yet. I know y'all are familiar with storms too, but they're thinking that the Storm, Baton Rouge, will get the worst of it probably around starting about 7 o'clock this evening, maybe around like 90-mile-an-hour winds, Cat 2. So everyone's kind of bracing for it here this evening.
Well, yeah, good luck. And I told you via text yesterday, we'll probably get ours at some point here. We typically do around this time of year, but certainly thinking about you guys. We've all been there. Let's jump into this one. I mentioned to Elijah just a second ago here, LSU's goals are all in front of them except for the going undefeated part, which probably wasn't too high on Brian Kelly's list. Get into the playoff, try to win that thing is where you are these days. But after the Southern Cal loss, which I don't think was a bad loss at all, and then winning last week, where is this team headed into its conference opener?
Probably depends who you ask. There's a lot of conversation here about the inability to run the football and if the offense has sort of lost its way, which it's so weird, Jay. I mean, you've done this long enough, and you and I have done this, speaking long enough to remember. I mean, there was a solid decade here where people bemoaned LSU offensively running into 8 and 9 man boxes, but that was LSU's offense under Les Miles, and now Brian Kelly's saying, hey, look, if they're going to stack the box, then we're just going to raise up and throw it. And they've had a lot of success doing that. But, man, look, winning mass deficiencies and losing magnifies them. So, LSU losing that game against Southern Cal as close as it was has only, I think, just really shown a light on some of the shortcomings. And then I don't know if y'all saw, but Jacoby and Guillory, LSU senior defensive tackle, who was the best guy at a thin position, tore his Achilles, so he's out for the year. So I think the vibes aren't really great right now, but you go on the road, you win an SEC game, it could fix that in a hurry.
And I'll keep it with the defense, too, especially, vibes-based here, because last year the struggles were pretty well documented considering what the offense was doing and the high-scoring games that they're playing in because the defense struggled to keep up. But, they invested on the defensive side of the ball, bringing Blake Baker in. And I know it's a small sample size with just 2 games so far this year, but what kind of differences have you seen in this defense this year as opposed to last season?
Oh, it's dramatic. I mean, and it's not to say that this defense has been great, but you got to remember, Elijah, last year, like you put it very, very kindly, LSU last year, that was literally the worst defense in the history of the program. There's never been a defense to allow more yards or points than that one a year ago. So there was really only one way to go. They were going to be better. I think the question is how much better. So the opener against SC was pretty encouraging because, look, Lincoln Riley rolls out of bed and scores 40. If you look at since he showed up at Oklahoma all the way through now at SC, every year they've averaged at least 40 except one. His last year at Oklahoma, they averaged 39. So to be in a game where you're tied at 20 with 8 seconds to go, it's light years from where you were a year ago. They have their issues defensively. I mentioned interior defensive line. They're not very deep or talented. I think they're still trying to figure out what to do with Harold Perkins, which is so disappointing. And they don't have all Americans in the secondary, but they're playing much better, and you're not seeing the giant coverage busts that were so common a year ago. This isn't going to be a top 30 defense in the country, but it can be a top half of the country defense. It could be a top 60 defense. And if the offense does what many think the offense can do, then that should be plenty good enough to have this team playing meaningful games in November.
Talking to our buddy Matt Moscona, ESPN, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, and many other fine cities across the state of Louisiana. Gamecocks and LSU Saturday noon here in Columbia. The LSU offensive line may be one of the best in the country. You've got 2 tackles, certainly, that are premier and will, I think, make a lot of money at the next level. And that's a place where Carolina's going to struggle. Let me start first with LSU's offensive line, in your opinion, going up against what is obviously now a markedly improved Carolina defensive line led by a true freshman in Dylan Stewart and a transfer in Kyle Kennard from Georgia Tech. What are you looking at from those guys? I know you've seen some of Cole Kubelik's analysis of Dylan Stewart, which feels otherworldly, but now the guys on either end where those guys can make a living, the edges I'm talking about, are going up against 2 of the premier guys in the country.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Obviously, Carolina leads the country in sacks through 2 games with 10, and LSU leads the country. They have not allowed a sack in 2 games. So, I mean, it's not hyperbole, guys. These are like this is good on good, right? I think this is the best matchup of the game. It's LSU's offensive line, in particular in pass sets against that really good South Carolina defensive front. And then obviously there's Hemming on the middle. And then Jay, who's the guy the other big guy? Reminded they came to media days.
Alex Huntley.
I'm blanking.
Alex Huntley.
Huntley, thank you.
Yeah.
So Huntley. I got to talk to Huntley at media days. Great kid. I really enjoyed that combo too. So I mean that's a good on good, right? I mean that's a really good matchup. LSU. I mean this is the best tackle duo they've ever had. I mean listen, LSU has never had two offensive linemen go in round one in the same draft. And the last time LSU had an offensive lineman taken in round one was Alan Faneca in 1998.
Dang.
So that's not a position where they've typically had high-profile guys that project to the next level. They've had good guys that have gone and played in the NFL, but not this caliber. And then the two guards are both four-year starters. So, yes, the offensive line is very good. The big sort of sticking point here through 2 weeks is we spent all offseason talking about this offensive line, yet the rushing numbers aren't. They've yet to run for a touchdown through two games, and one of them was against Nichols. So that's been a lot of angst around here. But as we kind of started, the point Brian Kelly has pretty continuously made is we're not going to run into a stacked box just because. If teams are going to stack the box and give us man coverage on the outside, we got really good receivers, we're going to throw it to them. I mean, he's said that pretty consistently. So until someone can stop them from doing that, feels like a pretty good approach. But I'll be really interested to see how Carolina chooses to attack LSU. If they just try to trust those really talented ends to say, hey, go see if you can affect Nussmeier, or if they have to bring numbers. That's the matchup to watch. If you're looking for one when either side of the ball, either team's on either side of the ball, it's that Carolina pass rush against the LSU offensive line, which both are pretty exceptional right now.
Yep.
Yeah, it's, life on Garrett Nussmeier is pretty easy if no one's laying a finger on you in a clean pocket. But even given that in the last two games, I mean, 8 touchdowns, 1 interception. He's following up a Heisman winner in what's one of my favorite, individualized seasons in the history of the sport in terms of just watching a player. But how does this offense look with him at the helm for a full season, even though we've had a pretty small sample size of him before the season began?
Yeah, I mean, Jaden was incredible. My God, it was so much fun to watch. It's a shame the defense was what it was last year. I mean, it kind of robbed them of a potential national championship caliber season. The offense was that good. They just needed the defense to be okay. But it's dramatically different right now for one obvious reason, which is Garrett doesn't run the ball. It's not to say he can't, and I think they tried that. Like, he didn't run the ball at all against USC, and that was much to the detriment of the team. I mean, they were the most notable play of that game. LSU had a 3rd and 1 in the fourth quarter when they had the lead, and they handed the ball off to John Emery in a 2-tight set. And the defensive end didn't even give any consideration to Garrett Nussmeier pulling the ball. It crashed right down and tackled Emery for a loss. So, and LSU punted and then gave up the lead. I think they tried to get him running a little bit last week. I just don't think that's going to be huge. That's just not going to be a huge part of the game. I mean, that's the most monumental difference from a year ago where Jaden ran for 1,100 yards, almost 9 yards a carry, which is absurd. But that's the big difference. The other thing, too, guys, worth watching when you look at LSU's offense, Kyron Lacy is LSU just kind of has just had this conveyor belt, this assembly line of just freakish receivers. And, I mean, from Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, and last year was Neighbors and Brian Thomas. You can go back to Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry. I mean, y'all know the list. The state produces really good skill guys. And Kyron Lacy's the next one. He's having a great start to his season. He's just a different kind of cat. He's one of those first-round talents. What they don't have is a stretch-the-field guy. That's what Brian Thomas did last year. And the guy that was supposed to do that year is Chris Hilton. And Hilton's a senior, and for his career, he averages just under 19 yards a reception. I mean, he's the true speed guy, physical receiver who can beat you deep and stretch the defense. But late in fall camp, he suffered a bone bruise in his foot, and he's missed the first 2 games. And I was told he didn't practice this morning. So he is officially questionable for the game. He may try to give it a go. We'll see how effective he can be, guys. But that is one element to this offense that they are missing right now. It is that true vertical threat because, Chris Hilton he will be that when he's back. He's just really unfortunate right before his senior season he got hurt.
Great stuff as always, sir. We appreciate you. And in all seriousness, thinking about all you guys as the storm bears down. Be safe. And looking forward to a big one on Saturday. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, guys. Thanks. See you.
You bet. That's our good buddy Matt Moscona. Again, ESPN Radio, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Lafayette, Lake Charles. A lot of spots across southern Louisiana. But, yeah, the storms are coming, so hopefully he's going to be okay. And he goes on the air here in just a little bit. You can follow Matt on Twitter if you don't already. Matt Moscona, Moscona, and he has a lot of great content. He is a very, very good Twitter follow. You're listening to the Postgame Show. Football season in full swing now, kids. It means you need to find the best way to watch the big game. Now, if you're at the ballpark, well, hey, that's the best way to watch. But what's the next best way to watch? Or there's a road game or just other games? Ha, glad you asked. That's with my good friends at Integrated Media. You see, just one call, they come to you. They'll walk around the house, indoors or outdoors. You say, hey, I want a whole big house system. I want to be able to watch the same thing in 5 different rooms. Okay, they can do that for you. And if you're building or remodeling in the near future, get ahead of the curve with your contractor and work with Integrated Media. Make that happen seamlessly. You couple the amazing TVs with a Dolby surround sound system. It's like you're there. They can do it outside, too. Trust me, the Samsung Terrace TV, the Sonos outdoor speakers look and sound like anything inside does. Just call them up. See what they can do for you. 803-948-8327. Feel like you are there with Integrated Media. Just finished wrapping up a conversation with our buddy Matt Moscona talking Carolina LSU coming up Saturday at noon. Game day is going to be here. Remember, game day will move into Williams-Brice for the final hour. Yesterday, Jeff Crane was on with us, the Associate AD at Carolina Football Administrator. And if you didn't hear or you're wondering about some logistics, all Carolina-run parking areas, including those of you in the Gamecock Club who have a fairgrounds pass. All Carolina-run parking areas will be open at 6 a.m. I don't want to say like you can get there Friday night. Can't do that. But 6 a.m., all parking areas will be open. The first student shuttles to get you down to game day from Russell House will be running starting at 5:45. Jeff letting us know that you students, I still have my old student ID. You think it'll work?
Oh, I think it's going to blend in with the others. Yeah, I'm sure it looks
the reason is
brand new.
They said breakfast provided by Duncan and Bojangles.
Ooh,
so
that's a good combo.
It is, man.
I do love Bojangles. Best chicken biscuit.
Get me a box of Munchkins and, chicken biscuit. Here's what when I go to Bojangles, I get a chicken biscuit and I get a country ham biscuit with egg. I like cheese, but I don't get cheese.
Interesting.
Yeah. I'm weird that way. I like cheese just fine. Cheese is fine. It's a fine product.
But it would go perfectly on that.
Yeah. Just it gets to be a lot. I like the combination of the egg and the country ham. Sometimes I'll get egg on a chicken biscuit.
Palate can get a little overwhelmed.
Yeah. Keeping it somewhat simple, but a little curve in there, a little curveball.
A little bit.
Just not a big Nolan Ryan 12-6er. That's okay.
Oh, too much for you.
But I've talked to a few people who are heading down. One of my children expects to be on premises by 8. I kind of chuckled under my breath.
Your confidence that she's getting there by 8.
She probably will.
I'm not saying what's your confidence level.
Oh boy!
We're putting a number on this. We're quantifying this right now.
I'll give her 85%.
Okay, I would say that borders strong confidence.
That's why I only chuckled a little bit. It depends. One of the things I learned, especially for a noon game. Like a lot of people, and this is not a condemnation or a judgment, all right? This is an observation based on experience, lots of experience. A lot of people like to go out and enjoy the night before a game.
Right.
Because that's fun. And it is.
It's the encapsulation of the whole weekend. Yes.
But if when there's a noon kick and you're out, say past 1, it gets tricky, man.
It can. But they do it in Big Ten country all the time.
Yeah. I don't know how, but do they just go? I mean, the thing is, you just got to go out earlier. You just don't stay out. Because, again, what happens is you get kind of caught like, I'm having fun. And again, I'm not judging. I may or may not have been in this boat.
Same.
Back in the day.
But that's the time in your life where you're built for that. You're built for that action at that time in your life.
You can be, but
I can't
again,
anymore. I'm washed. I can't.
There are lines. There are lines that you can cross. So I'm just saying, just don't cross the line. Get home, like 11, and try to be asleep by 12 so that you can be up at 7 and in the car by 8. So if you want to get to
or just don't go to sleep at all.
Well, we talked about that with Jeff too. That there may be some who are like, "Hey, watch this."
Because then, the game's going to end at 3:30, 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
I mean, then you can take yourself a killer nap after that.
Yeah, it may be a 16-hour nap.
Yeah, sure.
But then you'll just go out.
At that point in your life, for me, it would be a 16-hour nap.
Take a 2-hour.
If I tried that.
Take a 2-hour nap, then go back out.
Not only would I be a shell of myself for the actual game, but I will go back to my apartment and I will sleep for 2 whole days.
There you go.
I'll hibernate. I can't do that anymore. No. I cannot do the all-nighter like that.
No.
We tried doing the all-nighter like that at the Charlotte airport not too long ago, and I don't think it boded well for either of us.
No, it didn't. And that night, we only had one beer at the Dallas airport.
which does not constitute partying. So it wasn't even.
Well, the party was
same.
over when I got the notification.
Party ends right there.
Well, I was like two sips into the beer. And I looked at you, and I let out a word I can't say on the radio, and I said, our flight has been canceled. And then I was running through whatever terminal at DFW trying to figure out what to do. It worked, sort of.
I mean, we're here.
Yeah. I mean, Daisy did her best. Forest Lake Travel, Daisy Miller, thank you very much. She
saved us.
She did. She got us, at least she got us to Charlotte, man. Because now I know that we probably would have still been in Dallas because that IT thing happened the next day, which we had no idea that was going to happen. And she basically said, y'all probably would have been in Dallas till Saturday night or Sunday morning. And Dallas was a fine town. I guess we would have just had to call Langston at that point, right? Hey, man.
We'd have to, you
got to pull out?
I sleep well on a futon.
Yeah, so.
For now.
But so now we're wondering about the guest picker. Yesterday, you and I were kind of thinking Dawn Staley or Asia Wilson. But now beginning to hear, and it's only rumor, so I want to say, let me preface this before I say another name.
You're not breaking news here.
I am not breaking any news, nor have I spoken with anyone in any official capacity at all about this. I want to make that abundantly clear. But I am hearing that superstar pro wrestler Trick Williams is also on the list.
We did have somebody call in at the end of the show yesterday and bring that up, that he has canceled.
Matrick Belton, the former Gamecock football player, Trick Williams, the WWE name, but did see on the Twitters that some live events he was scheduled to be appearing in this weekend, he's been moved from. I'm doing the shoulder shrug for those of you who can't see me. That would be, that would make some sense.
That would
make some sense. He's a rising star in WWE. So I figure maybe there's three. I don't. And again, I do not know. I don't want anybody to say I heard Jay Phillips on the radio say it's Trick Williams.
Oh, they're going to do it anyway
because that's not what I said.
We know better.
Those whispers are out there. Whispers. That'd be fun. Would he body slam Coach?
You know what? I'd like to see it.
Or Pat McAfee?
Pat McAfee would be more willing to do something like that, like a stunt. I know that's a big no from Nick Saban, but I think that would be fun to watch.
Yeah, jump off the stage onto somebody, get somebody to taunt him,
like the LSU mascot, Mike the Tiger.
Yeah, that's good television.
Off a ladder or something. That would be sick.
That's good television.
That would be.
So, but I could see Dawn wanting to do that. She's from Philly.
And she could take that Tiger.
Yeah, she'll get in a little rumble.
Honestly, I like her chances against the Tiger more.
Huh. How about both? Tag team.
Well, then it's not fair for the Tiger. Do you want an even match or do you want a beating, Jay Phillips?
You get Mike the Tiger. You get the real Tiger and the Tiger guy in the suit.
Okay. You can.
Dawn and Trick are still winning.
Yeah. That's where my money's going.
That'd be fun. All right, so we'll see. But anyway, get out there early and bring a poncho.
I've already given some advice to some friends that are going, and I'm saying one of them, it's his first South Carolina game, and I said, buddy, because I was like, yeah, I'm thinking like 7. He asked what time you should get there. I'm like 7. He's like, ooh, a little early, don't you think? And I'm like, no, 7.
Yeah, get there early, bring a poncho, and have a lot of fun. Come back on the other side with some sound from Dowell Loggins. You're listening to the Postgame Show. 11 minutes in front of 4 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon. Our good friend David Cloninger coming up inside of a half hour. Not only will we talk some Gamecock football with him, but he was at the White House yesterday as the Gamecock women's basketball team was honored for their national championship. So we'll talk to DC about that and see what he thought of the White House and what he wore. Did he represent Rock Hill while he was there? Full disclosure here on the radio, I have been called out. And I have been called out by the child that I was just talking about, who just graduated from the University of South Carolina. She and her friends going to make it down there. She's not going to like this, but she wins. I lose. We have a family group text, like a lot of families do, I'm sure. All 6 of us are in it. Listening to Dad on the radio because I couldn't decide on music, and he's talking crap about me, saying that I won't make it to game day at 8 on Saturday.
See, that's funny because that's what she's mentioning in the group text that you were in. And as somebody who has 3 brothers and sisters, there is also a more what's the best way to put this?
Graphic?
A more holy group text.
There's
a more prestigious group text that does not involve the parents, where the real thoughts get to be unfiltered. So
I know they have one of those.
Roasted over coals.
The 4 girls have one of those. Yes, they also have one that only includes my wife,
excluding you. So that's just the roasting you're getting in the group text that you are in, not even
I just said. I mean, I gave her an 85%. 8 o'clock is early, man.
I will say that we mentioned this during the break because you told me this, and I said, well, I thought 85% bordered on like strong confidence, because if you asked my dad the same question about me when I was 21 years old, he would have said, well, I don't know, 35, 40%. He would not know. He would not have had any confidence that I would get there in time. He knows me too well.
And, I mean, she could walk, and she lives close enough. She lives up from 5 Points, but I mean, she lives like where she could hit Rosewood pretty easily and just go straight down. That might take a little while.
Good exercise.
But then you're getting up at like 7. She could probably make it within. Yeah, she could do that. She could make it like a half-hour walk.
Certainly.
Yeah.
I don't see why not.
But anyway, so sorry. I'm most stunned that she's listening, because I said, and look, I love my job, and I appreciate that many of you want to listen to what we do every day. I don't typically include my children in that group.
It's because they hear enough of you already.
Yeah, they don't
need to hear more of your voice. They hear enough.
I appreciate that she was listening. Couldn't decide on music, so, well, I guess I'll listen to Dad.
That's a mistake she'll never make again.
Is that a compliment to me?
That's a tough one to ponder.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. I'll bump her up to 90. How's that?
Okay. Yeah. That's
just a little something for the effort.
An extra 5% in confidence if she gets there.
We'll have a lot more from Coach Loggins, but real quick, if you would, please, sir, cut number 3 on this list. This is a quick one on Dowell, just, kind of measuring where the offense is in terms of progression and improvement.
Consistency, just being more as consistent as possible as a unit, eliminate negative plays, which is sometimes can be a challenge when you're playing a lot of young people like we are. When you look at some of the sacks that happen, it's easy to say offensive line, but they weren't. They were on other positions, and so for us, it's getting these young guys playing up to speed and eliminating negative plays and playing more consistent with our technique and fundamentals.
I suppose consistency and cohesion can be somewhat synonymous here. Not quite and not always, but that's what we've been talking about a lot, and we'll continue to bang that drum for a while. Eventually, you are who you are, and we did see some improvement last week in terms of, certainly, again, completion percentage. I mean, when you go under 50% in week 1 to 75% in week 2, that's obviously a big improvement. Now, you also threw the ball a little bit less this time around, so I don't know where their comfort level is. Well, I don't know. Again, listen, they only ran 50 total plays.
21 at the half?
Yeah. So, and there's a cut in here we'll get to in a little bit where Dowell talks about, sort of what he sees as balance or what he's looking for in balance. But you've made a great point many times during this preseason build-up and these first couple of weeks about how Mike Leach looks at balance, looked at, and how that kind of permeates a new style of college football with so many people running variations of what Mike and Hal Mummy came up with all those years ago. So, which doesn't mean 50-50, by the way. Again, balance is not, you run the ball 80 or, 60 plays, 30 run, 30 pass. Balance is, did you get everybody involved that you think you should be involving?
Does the defense have to account for everyone on the football field?
Yeah, that to Mike Leach was balance. So we'll get into more of that. But cohesion and confidence, cohesion and confidence, cohesion and confidence. Those are things that still need to be worked on. Got a little bit more of both last week at times, but LSU presents a very different challenge. Hour 2 coming up. Always love telling you about my good friends at Cato's Power Equipment. Ben Cato, his family have owned the business since the early 1980s. Matt and the crew ready to help everybody out too. Ben and Matt got me into my Toro Time Master mower last year. Love it. Helps me do it. I like yard work. I don't mind. I don't want to do it all the time. That's why I like my Time Master, because it cuts it in half. And probably getting in to see Ben about one of these new steel blowers here pretty soon because, the yard is going to start getting covered with leaves here in the next couple of weeks, whether you cut your own backyard, whether you need to keep it nice and clean, or whether you do it for a living. You need to see Cato's for excellent sales, service, and advice. A lot of great specials running right now, too, especially on some of those steel products. As I said, family-owned and operated since 1983, 4012 West Beltline Boulevard is where they are, I like to call, historically located. And you can always go online and learn more, catospowerequipment.com. Good people. 4 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back in. It's hour number 2 of the Postgame Show alongside Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. We are live inside the Herndon Chevy Studios in downtown Columbia, wherever you are. Thank you for choosing to be with us. Talked to our good friend Matt Moscona last hour. He's out in Baton Rouge and thinking about those folks as the hurricane is bearing down. He says the worst of it is likely to come over there in a couple hours. Maybe top speed about 90 in terms of the winds. So
That's pretty scary.
yeah, it's coming. And again, we've been fortunate not to have anything big around here as of yet, but it's only the second week of September, so we'll see. Fingers crossed that we don't, right? But thinking about those folks and some of the remnants likely sort of spread this way by Saturday. Latest I saw was throughout the day a 60% chance for the Metro Columbia area. So again, heading out early, just wear good shoes, take a poncho. I saw Josh Pate. I threw it out on my Twitter feed. He's right. He said, hey, and I think he was primarily talking to students, but maybe to everybody. But he said, hey, I'm pretty sure all of you at some point have been in a swimming pool. And, then he went on to basically say, you can't get any more wet than when you're in a swimming pool. So if you're prepared for the rain, stay. He said, because you can always go to a swimming pool. You can always find a way to get wet. You can't always host LSU in your building on a really big Saturday and have a really big opportunity.
Noted. I will wear swim trunks to the game on Saturday.
The best thing to do, seriously, just wear some shoes. Wear if you got rain boots, obviously. I wear what I call duck boots, my old LL Bean boots.
There you go.
I'm on like my 4th pair of them in my life because they do last a long time, but I have had a lot. But I wear those things religiously if I need to. In fact, it's about time for another pair.
I think you just talked yourself into buying
I might, yeah. Well,
for this game.
Birthday's next month.
Happy early birthday.
No, for this week, they'll be fine. They'll be fine. But it is about time for a new pair. Regardless, just, he's not wrong.
Bring a poncho, man. Ponchos are effective.
Yeah, I've been in some rain games, good, bad. I can think of like one of the Florida games where Carolina was just getting killed in the rain, and I was like, well, I got a ticket, I'm here.
See, that's my thing too. If I go to a game and the weather is like really bad, like unless the game is just atrocious, I'm staying. Unless it's like the team I'm cheering for is down 50 points and it's a national embarrassment, I'm staying because tickets ain't cheap.
No, they're not cheap.
Even if you got it for free, it ain't cheap because somebody else had to purchase them for a lot of money. Yeah, and it's going to get used.
Well, and if it starts to really come down, this stadium presents such a challenge to visitors when it's at full tilt, and I think it has an opportunity to be. Look, as best as you can for noon. I understand that, and the interesting thing is. This week, who the opponent is, because so many times you hear about, man, listen, if you get LSU, you better hope it's a day game, because at night that place is rocking, and LSU may feel that they're dodging a bit of a bullet here when it comes to playing at Williams-Brice at noon. For the second straight week, South Carolina's on national television. That's a big deal. LSU's more used to it. It won't matter once they kick off, whether you're on, a local cable outlet or you're on national broadcast television.
Jefferson Pilot.
Right, just go play the game. But Williams-Brice for a noon game, listen, I can think of some Georgia Day games that were LOUD, man. So I can think of a Clemson game. I want to say, y'all remind me, 09 Clemson. I want to say that was noon. And Clemson got up early. Let's say Spiller had a return, and that was the Stephon Gilmore Wildcat touchdown game. Carolina ended up winning that one. I'm pretty sure that was a noon game.
See, that's why, I think that the time of the game has a little bit maybe to do with some of the outcome, but when it comes to atmosphere, look, this is SEC football.
Yeah.
That's LSU.
Yeah.
You are 2-0.
They hadn't been here in 16 years, man.
You have a chance to get into the top 25 and make an absolute splash and stay at the top of the SEC. If you can't go to that game and get into it and that thing light your fire, then your wood's wet. That's all there is to it.
Right.
That enough should be alone.
I think if you win this
Enough.
game, considering how you beat Kentucky, I mean, I'm with you. This is not really a pushback. You say top 25, you might get into the top 20.
You could.
If you win this game.
Oh, certainly, especially if you do it, in a certain way.
Yeah.
Like this would be a massive one with college game day in town.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like if that, like this, my full expectation is that is going to be the best stadium environment that I have seen since I have been here since January 23.
Well,
I'm definitely expecting that.
It should be, and again, rain can hamper a few things here or there, but I like Josh's advice. Try not to let it bother you. And again, just take a poncho.
Take a poncho, baby. That's it.
They should hand out like Gamecock ponchos. That way everybody's got something where, garnet.
Yeah. See, and that way we're all, uniformed in color here.
Right. Like Disney World, man, because it rains a lot in Florida. And like magically at every gift shop, all of a sudden, now you got to buy them. But like magically at every gift shop, as soon as there's a few drops, man, there's those Mickey ponchos.
Yep, they're there.
They got two sizes, big and small. But like, I fully believe that at Disney World, like they're, employees, and I don't know which ones, just there's like, code Y now, and that means go immediately to the storage room and bring in ponchos. Whatever the code.
We might have to go code Y at Willie B on Saturday.
But it would be cool if they had like garnet ponchos they could just hand out.
Ooh, garnet and black. You can just spread it all throughout the stadium.
That'd be cool. It might be too late to order a bunch of those. I don't know how that works. Somebody's got them. You can get anything shipped overnight these days, right?
Surely.
Yeah. Let's get to a couple more things with Dowell Loggins before we talk to our good friend David Cloninger. Number 5, please, Elijah, on the list that we have today. We talked about this a lot the last couple of days. Look, Carolina did make some good progress on offense, but it comes with some caveats, including the fact that Kentucky had 12 tackles for loss against the Gamecocks. And while Dowell in a previous cut we had said, hey, it's not all on the offensive line. Other guys got to block and do their job, too, when it comes to some of that. But LSU presents a very big challenge. Here's Dowell talking about the Tigers.
Yeah, their defense coordinator comes over from Missouri, and he's had a lot of success against South Carolina the last 3 or 4 years, and I faced him twice at Arkansas. He does a really good job, creates a culture of playing hard that shows up on tape. As soon as you hit play, you see a team that buys into what he's doing, and on top of it's LSU, and they've got elite recruiting for years, and on top of a head coach that's obviously knows how to win games. So we're fortunate we get to play here at home, and it'll be a lot of our players' second SEC start, so you start adding experience, and hopefully we continue to get better each week. And their style of play on top of their scheme, on top of their talents, what creates issues.
Yeah, again, I'm curious to see how much when it comes to the negative plays. You heard Dowell talk about it in the cut we had last hour, Elijah. Hey, again, the offensive line can't be the only group that has that pinned on their shoulders in terms of the negative plays. But how many do you correct? What do you do to how much of it is just, again, the confidence aspect of it? How much of it, to one of the points you made last week about the guys on the perimeter especially, is purely the effort, the want to? You got to do your job. I know Michael Smith talked this week about some of that is for the tight ends. Like, we know we got to get out there. We got to do more. So you've heard that from players. It's being preached to them. But, again, LSU is just going to present such a different challenge, and the style will be to create havoc on a regular basis. And eventually that not only can cause problems from a physical standpoint. I think we saw havoc created by the Gamecocks against Kentucky last week, and it made Brock Vandagriff scared to death, and ultimately made Kentucky literally stop throwing the football
and do something they're not comfortable doing. And I know Kentucky historically has ran the ball really well, but the team that they have in 2023 or 2024 is designed to air it out a little bit. You got a quarterback who's supposed to be able to air it out a little bit. You have receivers that are really talented, and you're not even starting your starting running back in an offensive line that, while experienced, maybe not as good as they've had in the past, they didn't want to have to run the ball up the middle as many times as they did. But what South Carolina did was made you do that. For LSU, there is this already I guess, kind of moniker on them that they're having a hard time stopping the run. I mean, Nicholls State did, especially in that first half, get whatever they wanted on the ground. They were able to have sustained drives on the ground. Southern Cal ran really well against them in that game, and they were able to, even though Miller Moss, I thought, played fantastic, and it was a masterclass of quarterbacking for him in that game, Southern Cal was able to run the ball really well. And it wasn't just a lot of explosive plays, but it was a ton of sustained drives. That's where like kind of your leeway is with this defense. I mean, your offensive line is going to have their game of the year, because if they take away your running game, you're going to play into their strength, which on defense, which I think is the secondary. Ashton Stamps is a dude on the outside. That guy can really, really play. The effort's there, the talent's there. LSU already has like a pretty good history, obviously, of producing great players from the secondary. I think Ashton Stamps is just in another one in the long line right there. But when it comes to like the challenge this LSU defense, can provide, most of that does come from the perimeter playmakers. And if you're not able to take advantage of potentially a suspect run defense, then you have the inverse of what happened to Kentucky happen to you, and you're going to have to play in a game in which you're not very comfortable playing.
Do want to remind you, speaking of the game this weekend and all the games throughout the course of the season, that the Lawyer Lisa Special Teams Contest is back. $100 a game goes into the pot. If there's a special team score, somebody wins. None yet. Another 100 added for this weekend, so that's a $300 bonus if the Gamecocks score a special teams touchdown, and if we draw your name out. But we can't draw your name out if you don't enter. 1075thegame.com. Look for the Lawyer Lisa Special Teams Contest. Give us the info required, and then hope for a touchdown. Last year, we didn't get a winner until there was $1,000 in the pot. Never know. Never know.
And again, you can't do it if you don't enter.
That's right. 1075thegame.com. Our good friend David Cloninger on the other side. Thoughts on this game? And again, David in Washington yesterday, solving the world's problems, or something close to it. We'll discuss all that with DC when the postgame show returns. 4:17 on this Wednesday. Welcome back in. It's the Postgame Show. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. Lots more sound to get to from Dowell Loggins, Clayton White, both coordinators speaking today. Got some player sound, a little bit more from Coach Beamer. Interesting story out of Auburn. It's one of those, like, wait, what?
I love how in 2024, interesting story out of Auburn can conjure up a lot of images.
Yeah,
in
it
my
can.
mind.
But we'll touch on that for you too, and we won't dwell on it a little bit later on. But I've seen some things on Twitter for Panther fans being urged to make a statement on Saturday or Sunday. Excuse me, Sunday. So Panthers, man. Yeah.
Off to a great start. I thought that was awesome. I personally
You're a
cannot
Saints fan.
I cannot be more thrilled with the Carolina Panthers start to the season.
You're a Saints fan. That's fair. Our good friend David Cloninger is a Niner fan, so he's happy with his team. We won't talk about his favorite baseball team at this point, but you never know. But David is back, as we said, from attempting to solve the problems of the nation and world by visiting the White House yesterday. How successful were you in that endeavor?
Not very. I asked for a private audience with the president, and they said, well, what are you going to talk about? I said, listen, I've got this solution to all the nation's problems, and, I can tell him that for free. And they said, well, why don't you just tell it to me, and then we'll relay it to the president. I said, okay, I think I can do that. Here it is. Stop acting like a child, all of you.
Nice.
And, just grow up.
Sure.
And I think that everything would be solved in that case. And then and speaking of our favorite baseball team, I managed to make my way over to Nationals Park last night. And, I was there as the boys put a hurting on me.
You're the reason. That's good. All right.
Got some good crab meat on other ballpark food up there. It's I recommend it. Nice.
Now, did you wear a shirt that said where you were from at the White House?
No. As a matter of fact, I didn't. I mean, it had to be business attire, and I was talked out of wearing my Beatles necktie. So, I just had to go with the conservative route, unfortunately. I did have a lapel pin on the South Carolina state flag.
That's cool. Okay.
I wanted to wear my Northwestern Trojans football pin.
Well, that's what I just figured you would wear a shirt that said Football City USA or whatever the nickname is that you guys have for your hometown of Rock Hill, but I couldn't remember for sure. But no, you did the right thing, and I'm sure Mrs. Cloninger probably told you not to do anything foolish.
Yes, and I was also advised by several other people, hey, you keep your damn mouth shut. You understand? Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's good advice, David. That's good advice. Now, before we talk football, real quick, we've had some fun with you there, and I'm glad you did enjoy Washington, which is one of my favorite cities. But you were there to see Dawn Staley and the Gamecocks get honored. That's always a big deal.
Oh, absolutely. And, it was a long time coming. Obviously, it was no bitterness about why they didn't go the two times before. The timing just never worked out, Dawn made it very clear. It's like, don't send me this invite in the middle of the season because I've got more important things to do. So it was cool that you got to go up there and take some of the tours, some of the things that the other folks don't get to see. I mean, I'm sitting in the White House press briefing room, which is a personal highlight for me. Yeah. And I'm sitting there working on my story. And all of a sudden, Dawn comes in with Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary. Yeah. And they're posing for pictures. I'm like, man, how about this? So it was really pretty cool, man. I mean, it was nice. Got to go in and see the ceremony. And I'm, 20, 30 feet from the president. So, like I said, it's definitely right up there, on my career highlights list. And nothing against some of the other places I've been, but it's like when you compare it to say covering Dillon and Lakeview on a Friday night, it's right up there. It compares.
Having been to some games at Lakeview, I can appreciate that it's nearly a 50-50 split, so I'll give you that one. I'm glad everybody had a good time, and it is a very big deal, and hopefully they get to do it again sometime in the not-too-distant future. Let's turn our attention to Saturday, David, and the opportunity. You and I have covered this university's athletics department for a long, long time and been around it as kids even before that. I don't know where this is going to rank in terms of opportunity, but it's a little unexpected, perhaps, in that you did go to Lexington last weekend and really put a hurting on UK, and now this gives you a chance. Elijah and I were saying, if things go your way, there's a potential that you're not just ranked, but that maybe you get yourself in the top 20 and you're looking at a 4-0 start to the season. What's your biggest concern right now? Is it between the ears, or is it still the physical level of what Carolina is or is not doing?
No, I think that the football acumen part of the game will answer itself. Obviously, I think the biggest thing that they're looking at right now is South Carolina's gotten 9 to 10 sacks in 2 games, and LSU's yet to give up 1 sack in 2 games. So there's going to be one of the big decision makers of the result right there. But in terms of mentality, maybe there's a little bit of it. You do have to wonder about, are they starting to believe their own hype a little bit? But also, Jay, and you mentioned it yourself, we've been around this place a long time. So I picked USC to beat Kentucky last weekend. I picked them to win by 4, not 31-6, but I did pick them to win. Right. And when they said, how could you do that? I said, easily. It's the most South Carolina thing that could happen. Of course they'd go up to Lexington with an offense that looked awful the week before and play a really good defense, and of course they would win. That's the most South Carolina thing that could happen. So this week, well, what's the most South Carolina thing that could happen? You coming in with a lot of hype and game days here, and you got this pie in the sky vision. Well, I haven't made my prediction yet, but I don't know if I'll be as optimistic as I was last week.
Well, I think one thing that's made a lot of Gamecock fans optimistic was how the offense played, because, it was certainly better in terms of, you scored touchdowns with your offense, you sustained drives, and you finished 3 of them in the red zone with actual touchdowns and not field goals. But so there were some positives, but then at the same time, a stat that Jay and I have thrown around a lot on this esteemed program is that your average third down distance was 12 yards. So there's still some progress to be done, but how much did the situational success that this offensive unit experienced against Kentucky on Saturday, do you think correlates to a more positive outlook for this offense the rest of the year?
Well, I think it definitely opened up one thing. If it's 3rd and long, you throw it to Mazio Bennett. I just don't think there's any question about that. Somehow the guy's just standing wide open, or to put it in his terms, man, I was butt naked out there. I'm like, yeah, I get you. You're from Greenville. I get it. No problem. But it did look a lot more fluid. I think it was the pass that Lenore Sellers fed to Jared Brown. It was after he'd gotten hurt, maybe in the second half where he came out, and Brown was in the middle of traffic, middle of the field, and obviously he dropped the big one last week. But Sellers threw it in there, tight window, and he caught it. And you're like, okay. And you could not pretty much visibly see it on the field, like, okay, I can do this. And he relaxed a little. Still had some throws he'd like to have back. Still had some plays. Obviously the line has got to do a better job of picking up some of these blitzes. But it did settle in. It did look like it was fluid, that it had a plan, that it could be an identity. And obviously when you have a defense like that and the way it's been playing, it's like, hey, guys, don't worry about it. We'll be here until you get your act together. No problem.
Talking to David Cloninger of the Charleston Post and Courier, Carolina LSU on Saturday. Gamecocks touchdown underdogs at this point to the Tigers. Only 4 guys, speaking of Bennett, Brown, those guys, only 4 guys caught passes, David. How much of that is a byproduct of the situational football on Saturday, and how much of that might be a narrowing of the focus of guys that are going to be involved in the pass game?
Well, Jay, obviously when you're playing a team that with a really good defense and a really good defensive end in Deion Walker, you do have to kind of plan it around and saying, who knows how much time your quarterback's going to have to throw. I don't know if he'll be able to go back there a lot of times, sit back, scan the field, and throw long. So you shorten it down. And you say, we're going to have to go with some short routes, going to have to go with some sidelines, going to have to go with some crosses. And who are you going to use to do that? Probably your tight ends, right? Well, they're still not as involved as I think everybody would like them to be. But then again, when you have a pass rushing team like Kentucky was, well, you got to put those tight ends there and say, hey, we need you to block, right now. So, and maybe we can get you the ball a little later on. So, receiver, of course, it was a question mark coming in just about who is going to separate themselves. And now you do look at it and you start to see Jared Brown and Mazio Bennett kind of getting in there and saying, all right, well, if there's going to be 2 definite starters among your 3 receiver spots, those guys are going to be there. So I guess you would like to see it spread around a little more, but it's only been 2 games. And the fact that you're already getting a chemistry together with some of these guys and saying, hey, I know that Mazio is going to be forgotten about a lot in coverage and I can hit him. And I know Jared will go over the middle and be able to catch a ball in traffic. That's the kind of thing that's really going to help a young quarterback grow. So, and then it opens up the possibilities like the defense says, okay, well, we got to cover this guy. We got to cover this guy. Somebody going to have to be open, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what happened to get Mazio open against Kentucky when they were rushing so many guys so many times. It's like there's going to be somebody open. You just got to keep your eyes downfield and find him. And on those two big passes, the touchdown and the third down, I mean, wide open. Wide open. I mean, as a defender, you're looking at that and thinking, oh, man, please drop that or please trip, do something, because that's how open he was.
And then defensively, I think, we had Matt Moscona on in the last hour, and he was talking about like the real sexy matchup in this game is the good on good of LSU offensive line, South Carolina pass rush. And, they have a tackle in Will Campbell who's given up 3 sacks and 1,700 pass blocking snaps. And he's an absolute machine, so it's something's really got to give in this matchup. How much do you think the South Carolina pass rush is going to be able to actually affect the best offensive line that they've seen so far? Because after 2 games, it's as good as it's been in a long time around here.
Well, if I had that answer, I'd probably be on the other line to Vegas right now and placing some prop bets. But it's going to be a match where, that's going to be one of the ones that determines this game. So, obviously, any time you allow a quarterback to sit back there and not feel any pressure, he's going to find his receiver. LSU is most likely going to want to pass the ball a lot because their running game is in flux right now. When John Emery got hurt, they were down to, I think it was 2 scholarship running backs, and they ended up having to move a freshman defensive back over to RB just to have some depth in that spot. So you look at that and say, we want Garrett Nussmeier to throw. We want him to throw a lot. We feel like we could protect him if he can throw a lot. And, again, the longer you have to sit there and throw, the better chance you have that you're going to hit an open man. So USC knows it's going to want to have to rush, and it's just, hey, find a way. You guys are starting to get all this pub, and you're getting all these awards and saying, hey, this is one of the best freshmen we've ever seen. In this case, okay, you got to go prove it. Because the Kentucky offensive line was pretty solid, maybe not formidable, and they found a way around that constantly. So now you got to do the same against one that's ranked as one of the best in the country.
Good stuff as always, sir. Glad you had fun up there yesterday. Hope the Braves can keep winning. We'll discuss that at another point in time. And don't forget to catch David's work all the time. PostandCourier.com. Follow on Twitter if you don't already. DCPNC. We'll talk to you soon. Appreciate you.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
All right. We got lots more to do from the Gamecock coordinators as the post-game show rolls on. And say about our good friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union, getting a new vehicle anytime soon for you, anybody in the house, tailgate season, hunting season, whatever it might be, no better place than Palmetto Citizens to finance your next vehicle. They offer the same low rates on all new to 2021 models. They've got some great options for older vehicles as well, and many plans come with no payments for up to 90 days. Plus, on those newer vehicles, they can finance over 100% of the purchase price, and Palmetto Citizens offers additional coverage and insurance options dealerships can't beat. So go shop for that next vehicle, then talk about it with Palmetto Citizens and find out how much you can save on your car payments and how easy they really are to work with. I know firsthand. My wife and I are members. Fantastic people. 14 locations across town and always online at palmettocitizens.org.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to that are causing some issues on the roadways this afternoon. We're going to start with the ones here in Richland County. Got a few. One accident on Bush River Road at I-26 is causing some mild traffic backup, as well as one on Farrow Road at Highway 555 near Hardin Street, as well as one on I-20 westbound at Monticello Road near exit 68. We have a disabled vehicle on 77 northbound at US 21 near exit 24, causing some issues, and an accident on North Lee Street near Queen Street. In Lexington County, we only have one accident so far to report, and that's going to be on I-26 eastbound at the Piney Grove Road exit 104.
Talking Gamecock football, LSU coming to town on Saturday afternoon, noon kick. Got a hit on Twitter. Let me get back to this one here. Hang on one second. Said, hey, Jay, my friend, and then it's just some Twitter handle, so I don't know his friend's name, Mitch. Mitch and I are waking up at 4:30 in Charlotte. Lots open at 6 for a reason. Grab a coffee and a poncho and lace them up.
Grab 2 coffees.
Yeah.
If you normally drink one, drink 2.
Yeah.
Fire yourself up. Push yourself.
John did remind me, for those of you who heard me earlier, talking about big noon games at Williams-Brice. I thought so, yeah. The 09 Clemson game was indeed a noon kick. So, you got to bring it, man.
Got to.
Got to bring it.
They need you.
And don't, again, the weather could be a factor. So just be prepared for the weather to be a factor. But don't let the weather deter you from such a massive opportunity.
What's the NFL backup quarterback, motto? Every NFL backup quarterback's motto? You stay ready.
Yeah.
So you never have to get ready. So if you show up to the stadium ready for rain, you don't have to get ready for the rain.
I like it.
So you're already prepared.
I like it. Get back into some more Gamecock stuff in just a second. I want to touch on this real quick here. Elijah and I were talking. We put this in the drive around, and I wanted it to kind of stand alone because it's not just about Auburn or just about Peyton Thorne, their quarterback. This is why we can't have nice things, is what I want the moral of this story to be. Peyton Thorne was on the Next Round podcast recently and said that after he threw 4 interceptions the other day, there were bettors, gamblers, that were hitting him on his Venmo account asking for money. Quote, they're definitely not sending cash. It's funny. When they lose money, they want their money back. But when they win money on a parlay, no one's ever sent me any of the money. 1 in 3, according to a company called Signify, which is a company that works with the NCAA to kind of monitor a lot of this. 1 in 3 high-profile college athletes receive a message from someone that has a gambling interest in them, their team, or their game. There are some states that have banned sports books from offering prop bets. Many professional athletes have said this is problematic as well. Again, I'm not here to be overly judgmental or sanctimonious. That's not my intent. I'm really just here to rag on morons that would do this. And Peyton's absolutely right. Do you send him a percentage when you win?
That answer is no.
I mean, and what makes a person like it's one thing if in your head, you, the gambler, might think, Dad, gummit, I wish I could just get that guy to give me my money back. Well, you didn't place your bet with him. But my point is, even if your brain takes you to a place that says, I'm going to, hit him on social media, or in this case, on his, Peyton, buddy, if you can privatize your Venmo account, I would urge you to do so.
That's also really good advice. Venmo's not real social media.
No.
It's fine.
then don't give, because a lot of Venmo I know is open to the public. Like, which again, I like. Do you have Venmo? Like, you just make it private, man. But even if your brain as a gambler goes there in a losing situation, that's step one, right? Don't take step two. I mean, I just and this is one of those things, Elijah, and I'm dead serious, man. My brain wouldn't take me there. Now, listen, as I've said, I don't gamble. It has nothing to do with morality, which I know a lot of people that are anti-gambling do it strictly on moral grounds. Again, perfectly fine if that's how you feel. I don't care. I don't gamble because I don't want to lose. I like my money where it is. Gambling can be fun for people, and if you do it right, I get it. I get it, man. But to want to, hey, player X, or in this case, hey, Auburn quarterback Peyton Thorne, I demand that you give me my prop bet money back. Like, you're just an idiot.
An entitled idiot.
I truly just don't. I need to talk to like a sociology professor and figure out why it is that there is a segment of the gambling population, great word you used, that feels entitled to this. No. I mean, there are so many words I want to use that I can't.
Especially when most of them, like when it comes down to social media, that are too big of a coward to put their name in the bio. It's not their name. It's not their profile picture, whatever it is. And, I think I'm here. I like offering solutions, right? I would like for, some third party to be able to create a, like an organization or some type of directive to where you look up and like student athletes can report this stuff to this directive, and they're able to look up the phone number attached to these accounts and then get them in contact with the gambling hotline. Yeah. That way the gambling hotline will call you. Oh, I mean, you feel the need to Venmo request a football player because you were dumb enough to make a bet on Auburn football in 2024? You're the idiot. You're the one who needs to have the helpline, the gambling helpline, call you because you are not proactive enough to call them. Proactive enough to tweet at a player or to Venmo request a college athlete, but not proactive enough to call the number. Your real issue lies within yourself, and only within yourself are you going to be able to fix some of these issues that you're lashing out onto others.
Well, yeah. And
so we have this collective. This is our brain trust right here, Jay Phillips. This company can find out the numbers associated. If you make a Venmo account, you have a phone number attached to it. You make a Twitter account, phone number attached to it. Instagram, whatever. There's phone numbers attached to everything. That information's available. But then we'll have the gambling hotline call you until you pick up. We'll spam you until you pick up, or at least start asking you for money, and at least somewhat reciprocate the energy you're giving out.
And this is, look, I like that. I might take it a step farther. Not just the gambling helpline that's good. Hi, Mr. Johnson. This is the Federal Bureau of Investigation. What you're doing basically is harassment across interstate lines. We'd like you to stop that, okay? Like, for real. And by we'd like you to, you better. I don't know if he gets to that. I don't know how many people have hit him. Max Homa is quoted in this article, too. The PGA golfer is saying that several gamblers found his Venmo account and had done the same thing. And I'm sure that there are NFL dudes and NBA dudes
all the time
that get this, because those kind of prop bets are all over the place. Like NBA guys, I would imagine,
Oh, God.
But, yeah, and look, we knew that this would be the downside of opening up gambling across the country and that it trickles into the college game. I know that in some cases people now say, well, hey, they're getting paid, therefore they're pros, and they got to deal with it. No, you might have to deal with the ramifications of certain things as being a paid athlete, but you shouldn't have to deal with this. These are morons. Like I said, this has nothing to do with gambling anymore. These are morons, and like you said, entitled ones too. But they can't see the forest for the trees. because they're the only ones who don't realize that they're doing it wrong. Mm-hmm. Again, I come back around to what I said. I don't know how your brain goes there, but
I don't know how your brain goes to betting on Auburn in 2024. Did you not watch the New Mexico State game last year? What made you think this Auburn team is better at home? Like, look, that should be, you should, Venmo yourself, buddy. Venmo request yourself to get that money back because you actively put money on Auburn and that offense to win a non-conference game. I assume they barely beat last year. I know they were favorites against Cal, but at the same time, what about Auburn in the last 2 years, 3 years, 4 years has convinced you that you should put your hard-earned money on them? That's a you problem.
Yeah, that's a very good way to look at it. Best of luck to Peyton Thorne and to the other athletes who get harassed. And again, make that Venmo account private. We'll be right back. 11 minutes in front of 5 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back into the Postgame Show. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. Headlines of the day coming up, top of the 5. A lot more sound from both coordinators that spoke today for the Gamecocks, Dow Loggins and Clayton White. We'll have that for you. Dip into a little bit of player sound as well as part of the drive around the SEC. Before we go any further, never like to do the sad stories, but a good life lived. But if you have not yet heard, former South Carolina running back Kevin Long passed away last night. He was 69 years old. He was born in Clinton, was a 4-year letterman. He and Clarence Williams were really quite a tailback duo for the Gamecocks in the mid-'70s. I'll be honest with you. I know I was going to games back then because I remember Jeff Grant's his quarterback. Ron Bass took over after Jeff was gone. Both Kevin and Clarence had some good times in the National Football League after leaving the Gamecocks. Kevin was actually the first Gamecock to rush for 1,000 yards in a season. Did it in 1975 as a junior. And, again, he and Clarence kind of paved the way. Jim Carlin, that was 75, was Coach Carlin's first year. Second year, Kevin and Clarence were seniors and moved on. And then Coach Carlin went and recruited a kid from the greater Atlanta area named George Rogers. He turned out all right. George had 3,000-yard seasons as a Gamecock.
Did something pretty cool, too, in terms of
he won that trophy.
Hardware.
Yeah, and was the first pick in the draft and was very good. But and I know George thought a lot of Kevin and Clarence in terms of paving the way for Carolina to get, some really good running backs. George, certainly Johnny Wright, Thomas Dendy, Kent Haygood. There were a lot of guys that were very, very strong in doing what they did for Carolina for a long time. And I could go on. Raynard Brown. There were a lot of dudes that were solid. But Kevin was a good guy. Again, became the first, as I said, to go over 1,133 yards in 1975. Had 6 games with more than 100 yards. His career best against NC State was 160. He met his wife, Frankie, at USC. They both got their degrees. They were married 46 years, 4 kids, and 6 grandchildren. And, again, after his, let me go back and look here. The Jets got him in the 77 draft. He played for New York for 5 years and then played in the USFL for another 3 seasons. USFL was fun back then, man. Fun. That was good stuff. Again, not like this USFL y'all have seen the last couple of years. Nothing wrong with it.
Oh, they'll never be able to replicate that.
But that mid-'80s USFL, man, that was pretty cool. So rest in peace, Kevin Long. Like I say, I was a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old when he and Clarence were doing their thing. But I remember, what I remember, Elijah, really is them playing in the NFL because Clarence played for the Chargers for a bit, and when those Chargers were pretty good, and he played for a couple of teams. But it's like when you're little and you see like Rick Sanford going to the Patriots and things like that. It's like, hey, I saw them. Like, and now they're on TV.
The coolest thing.
Now they have a football card. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
It's like I saw them. So that's those are because I can't sit here and tell you. Now I remember like George in 79 and 80. By then, even though I was still little, trust me, the sports fan in me had been nurtured to where I was like I knew what was up. I knew what was going on. A few years before that, like I've told the story too about Jeff Grant, who wore number 12. Terry Bradshaw wore number 12. And Roger Staubach wore number 12. And Bob Greasy wore number 12. And to me, I was like, oh, well, you're obviously the best in the world at what you do if you wear number 12.
You're the guy.
And I told Jeff that story a few years back. I was like, Jeff, when I was like 5 years old, man, or whatever, like all I remember is like, he wore number 12. So he had to be awesome. That's what I remember, It's like, if you were 12, then that just means you're the best. So
automatically.
Yeah. It was like a no-brainer. Like clearly only the very best Like the coach comes and like, that's in my head. Like, well, here's 12.
Like in soccer, they do the number 9.
Yeah, 9 or 10.
Number 9 or 10, for the best player, always wearing that number.
Yeah, I mean 10 is typically 9. That's your scorer. 10 is your center mid, which is sort of the point guard kind of a position, if you will, in soccer. But yeah, if you get the 9 or the 10, you feel pretty good about it. But
I didn't think about it till now about how many great quarterbacks were number 12 in the 70s.
Well, like I said, I mean, to me, those three kind of encompass what was great about the 70s. And, now my guy Craig Morton wore number 7, but
not built different.
But it wasn't 12. But Bradshaw and Staubach and Greasy wore 12, man. So
that was his deficiency.
But to Kevin and his family, all the best. Kevin was a good one, man. And again, set the tone, he and Clarence, in the mid-70s for what became a pretty good place for running backs. Hour 3 coming up.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to that are causing some issues on the roadways. We'll start with the ones here in Richland County. Got an accident on Hardscrabble Road at Lee Road. One on I-20 westbound at Monticello Road near exit 68. Another one on 20 west at Broad River Road near exit 65. one on Main Street near College Street, and one on Park Lane Road at Highway 277. In Lexington County, we have 2 accidents recently reported, one on Fish Hatchery Road near Meadowfield Road, and lastly, one on I-26 eastbound. That's over at the Piney Grove Road exit 104.
It is 5 o'clock news time on this Wednesday. Welcome back in. It's also the final hour of the Postgame Show, along with Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. We appreciate you being with us. Gamecock coordinators speaking today. We'll start there. And Elijah, we'll get into a little bit from Dowell Loggins first here. Cut number 2, please, sir, on today's list. Balance on offense can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. What does it mean in terms of how Dowell is trying to use that word for his Gamecocks?
I think your question was about balance. Like you're saying, yeah. I thought that Lenore's was seeing things well, and you get to the point in the games. And part of being a coach is you got to manage your players, manage the game. You got to understand what's going to win that individual game, and you treat each game differently. And there's a different formula. There's always a formula to win. You got to find it as a coach. And at that point, I thought our guys were protecting well and seeing things well, and the offensive line was protecting well, and Lenore's was seeing things well. So I think it did create a little bit of balance. I think the biggest thing was we hit some shots that we didn't hit the week before in the passing game.
And those are the things that are going to need to continue. If you heard us earlier, Elijah has brought up throughout the preseason, again, different coaches can look at balance a different way. There might be, the most simple way to look at it and say, are you 50% run and 50% pass? Is that balance? And instead, again, Elijah borrowing from what Coach Mike Leach said about balance was, are you forcing the opposing defense to account for everybody you have? Because if you can't do that, then they'll find a way to make it imbalanced against you. That's sort of the thing. And is Carolina going to be able to continue doing that? And like you just heard Dowell say, hey, we hit some downfield shots we didn't hit last week. And the point being, to your point, Elijah, we made them start accounting for things that perhaps we just were not able to do for whatever reasons against Old Dominion. And it goes back to something Shane said in postgame. He was talking to the assembled media in Lexington. Love you guys, but I'm telling you, we're better than what we showed, and we knew we were. But everybody else has to go see it, whether that's media, fans, interested third-party observers, whatever. You got to see it. We don't get to go to practice, and that's not being critical. I don't need to go to practice. It's cool. It's cool. They practice early, man.
They do.
I'm still drinking coffee. So balance can mean a lot of things, but you still need to see the progression and LSU. We talked about Kentucky wanting to make you one-dimensional like you were against ODU. LSU is going to want to look to create some form of havoc. Exactly what that looks like and what that ultimately leads to, I don't know yet, but they'll want to keep you off balance.
And we played a clip earlier about maybe some of the progress the offense has made. And if we want to equate, progress and balance, let's do like a little mini thought exercise here. After the Old Dominion game, how many players, if you were Kentucky, would you really have to account for? Rocket Sanders and... Yeah. Did anybody else in the Old Dominion game really stand out to you as like, okay, if we don't account for this guy, this can be a problem?
No, I think you're going to come after the quarterback, whoever the quarterback might be, but
because
that's
they're the quarterback.
Because of the quarterback.
So that list was really small.
Right.
Now you go after the Kentucky game. Now you're LSU watching the tape. You better make sure you account for Mazio Bennett on the outside, Because if not, to use his words, he'll be running butt naked down the sideline wide open. And that usually, that, football version of nudity has resulted in points being scored. So you're going to have to, account for that. Josh Simon got into the teeth of the zone defense for that Kentucky was running in the red zone, and they scored with ease. Lenora Sellers' legs, when he rolls out, he's not only a threat to run like he did against Old Dominion, but he's gotten a little better at going through the reads and finding, a receiver like Amazio Bennett. Jared Brown took a handoff against Old Dominion for some good change. He had the drop, but he had some mixed results in that game. Jared Brown was one of your more useful offensive players. You're going to have to account for Jared Brown. This isn't, an embarrassment of riches with weapons, but now from one week to the next, and you're just watching these two games, it's clear that after week 2, there are more players that you have to actually account for that can hurt you than you would have perceived in week 1. So I think you're achieving more balance than you did after week 1, and you're showing a little bit of offensive progress. This is going to be a pretty big test to see if you can exploit a defense like LSU's in a game of this magnitude.
Speaking of more players, we'll switch over to a little bit that Clayton said. And by the way, we'll have more comments from both coordinators in our 5:15 segment coming up after the headlines. But again, we saw even more guys with Thomas and Edmond returning to the fold last week after missing the game against Old Dominion. Those guys up front, lots of rotation. Clayton asked today how he makes sure that all these guys stay engaged, especially when they're not on the field.
So it really starts on how we start our defensive meetings from this summer. And I kind of basically flat out said, hey, listen, we can only play 11 you guys at once. And you guys look around, there's more than 11 football players, really dudes in here. So we want to just keep that same group together. And our guys on the term, when your number is called, you definitely want to answer. You definitely want to be locked in. I think it is easier to keep a lot of guys engaged. So we got to do a great job as a staff to keeping our guys together, more importantly. But I think right now, guys are in a good spot, and they understand that we're creating roles for certain players. We want our guys to understand their role.
Yeah, I look, so far the evidence suggests that everybody is happy, and winning will continue to do that, and letting everybody have that taste, have that nibble, have a little bit more. Look, I think you're going to see ultimately. I don't know if you'll see it. I say that. I don't know if you'll see it pared down too much. I don't know. I think they like what they're doing. And this weekend, you want every one of those bodies out there. Eventually, Stewart and Kennard are going to need a rest. Now, Dylan Stewart may disagree. And he's young and full of energy right now. And maybe he only needs a couple of snaps off from time to time. And if the offense does their part, maybe he doesn't need any. I don't know.
Hey, if you can sustain some drives, do milk off some time of the clock, and then maybe you don't
keep that battery charged, But the rotation up front, especially, and at linebacker, again, these are the good problems. And I remember, I think it was Clayton's first press conference, or the press conference before the Old Dominion game, and he had that kind of little wry smile on his face and saying, "These are good problems." Yeah. And because you have seen. We don't want to oversell it just yet. You're only 2 games into a 12-game season, but you have seen the benefits of the recruiting. Be it high school or portal, and some further development of guys that had to play a lot last year. This is a better defense, and there's quality depth there. Again, LSU's going to attempt to. LSU's really good, y'all. They're really good. This is not going to be Kentucky. All right. It's just not. But I think you've shown that you can go do a lot of good on the defensive side of the ball. Again, both coordinators speaking today, and we'll have more from them coming up in just a little bit. Interesting news today. This was being hinted at, and I really didn't even realize it, but the University of Michigan announcing today that they have a new head football coach. His name is Sharon Moore. And you're like, wait, what?
Who's only been the acting head coach for the first 2 games anyway. So
he was technically working without a contract, more of one of these memorandums of understanding, according to Jake Trotter, who covers the Big Ten for ESPN. He writes, the 2 sides agreed to the framework of a deal in January. Moore's contract was set to be a 5-year base of $500,000 and $5 million in additional compensation in year 1. His salary and additional compensation would increase by 2% in subsequent years, with a $500,000 bonus for each year that he remained head coach. Says Santa Ono, who is the president of the University of Michigan, quote, he, Sharon, is a proven leader and has been a great ambassador during his 7+ years representing Michigan. Our university and athletic department leadership is behind Coach Moore, his coaching staff, and the great student athletes that compete on the field and in the classroom. I imagine that some of the holdup, it doesn't really get into it here too much in this particular piece, was that Sharon is still named in some of these NCAA investigations. Sharon has now admitted to deleting over 50 individual text messages to Connor Wild Stallions. So there's that. And, hey, do we need to worry about you being in trouble? What are we paying you for? What's this going to look like? There are probably just a few things that the lawyers on both sides wanted to make sure was good. And you knew this would eventually happen, right?
Oh, yeah.
But it is odd. I mean, it took till week 2.
Well, what makes it even more odd, Jay, is that when they announced that he was going to be the head coach, there was a photo op with Ward Manuel and Sharon Moore sitting at a table with papers on said table and pens in hands. What does that tell you, Jay Phillips? Without reading any words that are captioned, what does that image tell you?
Yeah, it tells you that you're signed up. You're locked in.
That you have signed a contract and you're signed up.
Yeah.
So when the news came out that he was not under contract to be the head coach at the University of Michigan, people pulled those pictures up and said, what the hell's this? And rightfully so. I mean, like most pictures that, universities or pro teams put on social media of players signing usually isn't the contract.
Right.
It is a photo op. But if you haven't settled on the deal yet, why expose yourself to mockery?
Right.
Which is exactly what they did.
They did, but it's good now.
It's good now, but
Who do they
there's
have,
some,
who do
there's
they have
some
this
next
weekend?
level goofiness going on.
They have an easy game this weekend, right?
For their sake, they better.
I think so.
I'll look that up.
I think so. Speaking of new coaches,
They stink.
who?
They stink. Yeah, Michigan football.
Yeah.
PU.
Speaking of new coaches, the United States men's national soccer team announced the hiring of Mauricio Pochettino yesterday, the Argentinian who has coached Tottenham, Paris Saint-Germain, and Chelsea in his career, is coming over. This is quite a coup for the United States. He is signed through the 2026 World Cup. He will officially be introduced in New York City on Friday. He won the French League with Paris. He has played for the Champions League final, losing to Liverpool with Tottenham. He had Chelsea win their final 5 games last year, but then there's like a power struggle at Chelsea right now. And basically, one portion of the ownership wanted him out, and the other portion of the ownership wanted to keep him. He's better off not being there. And timing is everything. America needed a coach, and this guy's available. It's hard for me, for those who don't follow a lot of soccer. Terry and Tyler asked me earlier, like, who could I compare him to? And it might not be the best analogy, and I might have to think a little more on it, but kind of like Pete Carroll, but maybe with some more success. I mean, Pete, he did win a Super Bowl, got to a couple of them. Was a great college coach too. Maybe somebody like that's kind of done it with some different types, and has had success at both. I don't know if that's the best analogy, but that might be one I could use.
So hard to make those.
It's tough. It's tough the way the sport works. But again, he's an excellent coach, and he's got a decent roster to work with now. And if you're America and you host the World Cup, you certainly need to make at least the quarterfinal. You'd like to make at least the semifinal. I don't think America's prepared to win the World Cup in 2 years' time, but
or ever. But that's.
I don't want to say ever.
I'm gonna say.
I want to believe that one day.
I'm gonna say ever.
One day.
That's been the whole complaint about this group. The last several international tournaments is you've got more talent than you've ever had, and
they're underachieving.
Yeah, you still fall on your face in every single.
Well, when your best result is a 0-0 draw with England. That was a good result, that one game in the World Cup last time. But, again, if that's your best result under Greg Berhalter.
Your best result should never be a draw.
It should not be a draw.
Who it is.
It's like, you didn't lose. I get it.
This is America, buddy.
Yeah. But when you needed to go win a game against the Netherlands, they beat you up pretty good.
It smacked you up. Yeah,
that
wasn't close.
That wasn't close. So Mauricio hopefully can get a little bit more done. Finally, the Atlanta Braves got back on the winning track last night. They took care of the Washington Nationals, who are not very good. Braves winning 12-0. I did petition the National League to have some of those runs spread across other Brave games, even retroactively to the night before when they lost 1-0 to the Cincinnati Reds. Sadly, that petition was denied.
Yeah, they should. They said, I think I saw the email where they denied your petition, said, nope, you have to score a run on Nick Martinez. Getting shut out by Nick Martinez is automatic grounds for 2 losses. So instead of getting that approved, the Braves were charged with 2 L's.
Braves, so that was the good news last night, is that the Braves won. Second bit of good news last night, the Mets lost, so the Braves and Mets once again are tied for that final wild card spot. I don't like calling that good news, but hey, it's better than the alternative. The bad news, the Braves placed all-star Ronaldo Lopez on the 15-day IL with shoulder inflammation. This is a guy this year who is 8-5, but has an ERA of 2.03, 137 strikeouts in 24 starts. But he threw 25 pitches last night, but he was definitely hurting, and they made the move. So now Ronaldo, who has been great, goes on the shelf. Hey, just hold on, see what happens. All right, more from the coordinators coming up. That's our headlines of the day. 20 minutes after 5 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon. Do want to remind you tomorrow in the 3 o'clock hour, our good friend Brad Crawford, national college football analyst for 24/7 Sports, going to be with us. Always fun talking with Brad. Get his take on what's going on with Carolina LSU. Earlier today, Elijah and I had our buddy Matt Moscona on from ESPN Radio, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, and got into the conversation of good on good. And he, like many of us, believes that the real matchup here, the number one matchup anyway, amongst a few, is going to be the Gamecock defensive line, which has been very good so far.
Dominant.
10 sacks already and, over 20 tackles for loss. Going up against an LSU offensive line that so far through 2 games has yet to give up a sack. And we got some sound from Clayton White here on the LSU pass game. Garrett Nussmeier so far is 57 of 76, 1 pick, and 8 touchdowns. He is averaging 305 yards per game. Here's Clayton. And you want to set this up anymore, or is that give it enough?
I think it's pretty good.
All right,
yeah.
Here's Clayton on what he sees from the Tigers through the air.
Yes, I mean, obviously, 44 yards passing is obviously a hard mark to kind of repeat. LSU does an outstanding job. Coach Kelly, Nussmeier, and all those wideouts that they have really good tight ends. I think they, obviously present a challenge for everybody they play. The game plan definitely is changing every single week. You have to always adjust and to who you're playing and when you're playing, and you definitely want to keep the focus on yourself and your technique and how you play your coverages, be cleaner. There's a lot of things that we could have done better in the previous game and the previous 2 games. We feel like we're just now getting started, but we want to continue with those small details and keep practicing hard and bringing that great energy to practice.
And bringing that great energy not only to practice, but having it translate to defensive execution. Before we talk more about that, one more on this one. And again, LSU may have the best offensive lineman in the country right now. It depends on one's point of view, certainly. But when you look at their tackles, man, it's, again, you got Campbell on one side, Jones on the other. These are 2 of the top 50 overall college football players in the country. Campbell has been rated as the best offensive lineman in college football this season. Here's Clayton White talking about what Carolina faces.
Yeah, between Campbell and Jones, those guys are Campbell 66, Jones is 50. I mean, they're definitely talented, long-range guys who play with a lot of energy. Like you watch them, they're helping their quarterback up when he gets knocked down. They're going for loose balls that are on the ground. I mean, I think their intangibles are just more important than their talent. But game plan wise, you have to understand who you're going against, and it really doesn't really change. I can't, really make a huge change on our game plan, but we're definitely aware of who they are and their skill set.
Campbell, 28 starts in his career, so 29 coming up. Jones has made 26 starts in his career. So, by the way, their guards have 18. Dellinger at left guard, 18 career starts. The right guard, Frazier, 19 career starts. Their center is the newcomer on the block. He's making his 3rd career start for LSU. So that's a lot of experience up front. And again, those tackles are going to be handsomely paid at the next level if they're not already.
And here's the thing. I like the point Matt made of how this offense, or a Garrett Nussmeier quarterbacked offense, is much different than what Jaden Daniels was last year. It was Jaden Daniels as an 1,100-yard rusher in college football, which accounts for 1,500 yards in the NFL, if I'm scaling it. Because if you get sacked, you lose those yards. We've gone over ad nauseum the flaw in NCAA rushing statistics for quarterbacks. But Nussmeier's not going to be doing that. But what he can do is if you give him time, he can pick you apart a little bit. You mentioned the numbers, 8 touchdowns, 1 pick. He's throwing over 300 yards a game and was able to really move the ball well against Southern Cal. Now, they kind of shot themselves in the foot a couple times when they got in the red zone, and ultimately I think that's why they lost the game against Southern Cal. But Nussmeier, as solid of a quarterback as he is made better because he's got 2 bookend tackles who make sure that he does not get touched. Like, the Secret Service doesn't provide that type of protection for whoever the president is, right? He's got one of the best jobs in college football is to have those 2 as his tackles. That's why this is going to be such a massive, massive showdown in the trenches, and really where this game can be won, because when you just look at the raw numbers of the 3 sacks that, Campbell's given up in his entire career and 1,700 pass snaps, and the fact that Garrett Nussmeier this season already has dropped back to pass 35 times and has only been touched twice.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good strength on strength right there. And really, we're going to see what Garrett Nussmeier is really made of if you're able to get to him at all. And that's the fascinating thing. If you're able to get to him at all, A, what's it going to look like? And B, how frequently can you muster up adequate pass rush abilities? Because we've seen that this defense is fueled by the pass rush. Nick Emenwari, after the game, was the question I asked him, like, how much easier is your job when the pass rush is getting there in like less than 2 seconds? And he says it's easy. It makes everything easy. It made the interception easy. It made a lot of things easy that, you have a lot more freedom in your defensive backfield when the pass rush is getting home like that. And back to Clayton's point that you heard in one of those clips, that, you're not going to get 44 yards of passing from Kentucky, or 30, I think is what they ended it with 30 yards of passing. But if you're able to make a difference and be able to win that battle, very tough. But you're going to be able to change a lot in the course of that game.
Man, this is part of the fascinating. And again, we're here as much for the story. This becomes the story.
This is a great story. Yeah, this is a quintessential SEC trenches type game.
Yeah, and it appears for now, at least, on paper, South Carolina's got something that they can use in their favor. But what LSU does to account for that, where you bring another tight end again, can somebody free up somewhere? Will they need to double those guys? That early on, you would imagine LSU will probably want to go one-on-one with you. Mm-hmm. Let's see how that's going. And I know I would. I'm not going to immediately double team anybody.
No.
We're good. That's what LSU is going to be saying.
You would like to have more receivers out there to be able to spread around a little bit.
So it'll be interesting to see what that looks like early, and what Carolina might be able to do to disguise some of the things that they will try to bring in an effort to try to keep LSU off balance. We'll come back, get you some more from Dowell Loggins, who has a pretty good, not really lengthy, but a detailed evaluation from his perspective of what the offense has done from week 1 to week 2, looking ahead to week 3. And I mentioned this to Elijah earlier, but as part of the drive around the SEC, an interesting statistic as A&M visits the Swamp. You're listening to the Postgame Show. Too often, he tried to say, guys don't go to the doctor. Me? When they're feeling off, whether it's because they think they can tough it out or because they just don't want to talk about it. Do yourself a favor and your loved ones as well. Don't be that guy. Instead, get to feeling better after you see Dr. Dan Balknight and his team at the Men's Clinic. They are experts in healthcare for men. They're dedicated to making you feel like yourself again. You'll get a one-on-one consultation with Dan and his team. You'll really find maybe, hey, there are gaps in my life, in my daily ritual, my daily habit. And then they'll find ways to fill those gaps and get you back to feeling the way you want to, the way you used to, the way you need to. 803-875-MENS is the phone number to set up that consultation and learn more so you know what's going on at themensclinicsc.com.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to you that are causing some issues on the roadways this afternoon. We'll start with the ones here locally in Richland County. We've got one on Hardscrabble Road at Lee Road, another one on Main Street near College Street, one on Park Lane Road at Highway 277, and one on Clemson Road near Carriage Oaks Drive. Also have one on Farrow Road at Highway 555 at Park Lane Road. That one's been causing some issues for about the last hour and a half or so. In Lexington County, only one to get to you. That one's over at Fish Hatchery Road near Meadowfield Road, causing some mild traffic backup.
It is Drive Around the SEC time on this Wednesday. Welcome back in. Jay and Elijah with you. Again, 3 conference games this weekend, including the Gamecocks and the LSU Tigers. Georgia, a big favorite at Kentucky. Kentucky coming off that humbling loss to the Gamecocks. Can they find any way to muster up an upset on Saturday?
Well, here's the good news for Kentucky.
Yeah.
You know, they got their tail absolutely whipped on the offensive line with South Carolina's pass rush. Thankfully, a team is coming into your building that is not known for their pass rush and defensive line. So if there's anything I could offer to Big Blue Nation in terms of hope for this week, it's that you're playing Georgia Tech. No, you said Georgia. Oh, okay. Whoops. No. Sorry about that. It's okay. Just kidding. Forget everything I said. It's over.
I know
it's over when they walk off the bus.
I know South Carolina scored a defensive touchdown, so if you wanted to take that off, Carolina won, by 18 points. You don't. It counts. But the point I'm making is Georgia is they opened at 21. They're now a 24-point favorite. So Georgia's looking at that going, well, if South Carolina won by 25 and we're only favored by 24, we have a point to prove.
Oh, look, Kirby Smart is the master at finding bulletin board material where it doesn't exist. I mean, the guy can conjure up bulletin board material that defies Newtonian physics. He's creating.
He made them believe 2 years when they won their second title. He made them believe they were only going to win 6 games.
Yeah, that somebody.
He made them believe it.
He made them believe that somebody else believed they were only going to go 7-5, which is just so miraculous. I
was like, if you meant at home. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're not going to play that. It was so dumb. It was so dumb. And if he was able to do that, he pulled motivation out of Tonka Hemingway, not including Sanford Stadium in one of his toughest places to play, despite I don't think he played there at the time.
No, and he had not, and it wasn't anything at all personal. Even Michael Jordan's looking at Kirby going, dang. I used to make stuff up, but I tried to at least keep it realistic.
Yeah,
because there's no one on planet Earth 2 years ago that said, I don't know.
This Georgia team that just won the national championship and is bringing back a lot of players. I think that's only 7 wins.
Yeah.
No one believes that.
That's why I say, only 6 wins in Athens. Because I think you had 6 games in Athens.
I guarantee you he is talking to those players right now. You're only favored by 24.5 points. South Carolina beat them by more than that at their place. I guarantee it. Guarantee it. That is being said.
I expect Georgia. I don't know if that's going to be one of our games this weekend or not. I haven't talked to the committee about that yet. But if it is, I'll probably take Georgia to cover the points.
Yeah, whatever it is. If the line just said, instead of giving an actual point total, if it just said minus ugly, I'm taking the minus ugly. It is going to be humiliating.
The stat I'm going to give you again, I didn't come up with it. I saw this on Twitter this morning during show prep. A&M going to Florida, and I don't really. It's just an observation. I guess there's no real judgment here, but I mentioned to Elijah by the time the game is played, again, not including the result. All right, because I don't know what the result is because they hadn't played yet. But on Saturday, Yeah, that's scientific right there.
That's analysis.
Thank you.
Yes.
It will have been 1,065 days since the Texas A&M football team won a true road game. They did win their bowl in 2021. All right, so that's a neutral site game. Doesn't quite count. But in terms of true road win, they have not had one since they beat Missouri October 16, 2021 in Como, 35-14. I don't say that to tell you, therefore, A&M's going to lose. I don't say it because I think they're going to snap it. I don't know. It's a 3.5-point spread. A&M's the favorite at UF. Let me give you the FPI, and then we can see what the EFPI said. The FPI, 59% to Texas A&M.
59.
59-41.
I was thinking 53. A&M, 47.
Okay.
Florida.
So, it sounds about right is all.
Yeah.
I mean, because again, I know A&M wants to believe that A&M is something else, but A&M is a typical 8-4 kind of ball club. And they don't do well away from Kyle Field.
It's just jarring when you put a number to it, like the amount of days it's been since they won a true road game. Like anybody can just say, oh, they haven't won a true road game since 2021. But when you throw out a number that has a comma in it, it's a little more jarring, right? To hear that and be like, wow, yeah, you guys really haven't won anything in a few years when it comes to playing away from Kyle Field. And look, when you just look at this from a football perspective, Florida is reeling right now. I know they got the win against Samford, but again, that's an FCS school, and you should look like that. Like, congratulations, but can you prove something at home in a game against another team that doesn't just, not only have a pulse, but is in the conference with you and is comparable in terms of talent? You're going to try to play two quarterbacks. I mean, historically, using that as our guide, doesn't usually bode well.
Don't do it.
Especially if Graham Mertz struggles even the slightest bit early, and you're going to hear the groans in the crowd wanting DJ Lagway because he is the highest ranked quarterback recruit he's gotten since he's been at Florida, Billy Napier.
Right.
But A&M, on paper, in terms of just the amount of talent they have, every bit as good, if not better. And I think Mike Elko's a better coach than Billy Napier. I think there's a lot of things that point towards A&M in this game. But then you take into account just the toxicity around Gainesville right now with the coaching situation, the quarterback situation, how ugly that first game was, because it wasn't just like, Miami won 41-17, right? But when you go back and watch the game, it was uglier than that.
It was
more humiliating
I agree.
than that.
Yeah.
I mean, to the point that Florida's reeling right now, this would be the game of itself in terms of magnitude is make or break for them. But my faith in them to be able to make as opposed to break is so little that this does kind of feel ripe for A&M to make a little bit of history, unless, of course, they go full A&M, which is what makes this game so fun.
Well, and again, as I say, I don't know. And I know Florida's got some players too, man.
They do.
But it's getting to a point in listening to some of the things I saw today from Andy Staples, who, of course, played for Steve Spurrier at Florida. And Andy didn't say this. I'm reading between the lines. And I've been reading some other things about what's going on down there. You're starting to get to that point where you feel like a faction of the fan base would just as soon go ahead and lose. They want him out, and they know winning delays that decision. And that might not, look, right and wrong at this point becomes so subjective that I'm not going to say, oh, that's the wrong thing to do. Now, I will say I think it's the wrong thing for Billy to want to play two quarterbacks. But again, that's my
easier making that.
But that's my opinion, and I'm not the guy who's making a bunch of money to do it. But I suppose I can at least, even if I wouldn't agree with that logic, I can appreciate where that line of thought comes from again, a faction of fans at UF. You know what? Let's just end the misery. Let's rip the Band-Aid off. And in this case, it's one of those big giant Band-Aids. It's not like for a little cut that you got. It's for like a wound on the back of it's like, man, that thing's going to hurt. But
takes two people to rip it off.
Yeah, I'm sorry for that analogy. I couldn't think of anything better. But should they be humbled again? And I don't know that that's going to happen. I don't know if A&M's that good. But should they be humbled again? does Scott Strickland have the AD have an immediate choice to make? I think that's a fair question.
I think, yeah, have some shame, man.
You know?
You're at the University of Florida. I mean, what did Andy say when we had him at SEC Media Days at the table? I mean, I brought up the schedule being the toughest in the country and how hard it is, and he said it shouldn't matter. And that's a really good point because you've won in the SEC under multiple coaches.
It's Florida.
For a long time.
Yeah,
it's the University of Florida.
It's Florida. Yeah.
Like, the crying over the schedule should only be to keep you from going 10-2. Right? It should be like, oh, the schedule's so hard, we might only be 8-4 this year. But now it's, oh, the schedule's so hard, we'll be 6-6 at best. If you end up starting 1-2 with 2 games at home, 2 winnable even foes, and getting just smacked in both of them, there is no other choice to be made. You cannot continue the season, especially with, like we alluded to earlier, that toxicity that is in that program right now. And it's only going to get significantly worse. There is something to be said about the new coach bump. There are a lot of teams that do fire the coach early in the season, and the team gets rejuvenated a little bit because there's a change of pace. And maybe you can salvage a little bit of pride at the end of the season if you are able to make a change and just go ahead and start taking steps toward the future early. I do think it would take A&M just dropping the hammer on them for that to happen, though.
Yeah, and that's why I say if this is a result that is just like, whoa, because I don't really anticipate that. They go to Mississippi State next week, then an off week, then they host UCF, who's not having a very good year. Then they go to Knoxville, host Kentucky.
After last week, we're like, oh, maybe.
Then another off week, then the cocktail party. Then they go to Austin.
Ooh.
LSU goes to the Swamp.
Yikes.
Ole Miss in the Swamp.
Yikes.
And close in Tallahassee.
Okay, winnable. Honestly, not as bad. The Florida State, Kentucky, Mississippi State, which Mississippi State might be better than
they might, and UCF. And UCF. You can win. You win Saturday. And I see some winnable games. I do not like their trips to Knoxville and Austin, and I do not like their opportunity against Georgia.
Well, I don't like it against Ole Miss either.
Yeah.
The way that offense be humming.
Probably so.
They've scored like 1,000 points already.
That's the Drive Around the SEC, brought to you by Herndon Chevy. Stop by the showroom, see why Herndon makes you smile. Together, let's drive. We'll come back with Dowell Loggins' assessment of the Gamecock offense through 2 games when the postgame show returns. Welcome back into the Postgame Show. Remind you one more time about the Lawyer Lisa Special Teams Contest. It is back. We're into week 3, so there's $300 in the pot. It's $100 a game. Now, if there's a special teams touchdown, then we'll reset the pot. But so far, we hadn't had to. So, and again, last year, first winner came in week 10, $1,000. I can do that math. And I am not good at math.
You can buy a lot of McChickens with that.
You can buy a lot of things with that. I might buy some of those. They're pretty good.
Oh, they're very good. Not $1 anymore, which is really unfortunate. Times have changed, but at one point in time, you could buy 1,000 McChickens with that. That is
like
many
900 because you got to pay tax, man.
Yeah, sure, whatever.
They get you on the tax.
Whatever.
I get it. But
I
you
can
have
foot that part myself. I ain't that broke.
You have to register at 1075thegame.com in order to be eligible to win the Lawyer Lisa Special Teams Contest.
That's right. How many players in basketball, Jay Phillips, have ever scored a point in the game without taking a shot or a free throw?
Ooh, I don't know. Like if I were to throw a ball off of a player's head and it go in the bucket, who gets the credit for the bucket?
You get the bucket. If it was a teammate, the teammate gets the bucket because it's their noggin that knocked the ball in. But if you threw it off an opponent, you would still technically get the point, but it still counts as a shot attempt.
Okay.
Because you cannot score if the shot is not attempted.
That's fair.
So
the
same thing applies here. You cannot fall, rear backwards into winning this thing.
I was trying to find some way.
I appreciate the mental exercise there. It's good for all of us. But you cannot win if you do not apply.
That is factual in this specific instance. Speaking of entering things, I think you had something to do with this, right? Can you explain to people real quick about how they can win tickets to the Ole Miss game?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I didn't come up with this idea. Actually, I don't remember who did. It might have been Terry, but I don't know if we should give him credit for it yet.
No,
but
we should not.
And even if we did, I don't know if we should. I'm really conflicted on this.
Just give Jen the credit.
That's right. Jen gets the credit.
Or Tyler.
Jen, Jeannie, Tyler. There you go. Okay. If any good idea happens in this building, I think we can automatically attribute it to them. But if you show up to the College Game Day set on Saturday and you have a 1075 The Game shirt or a 1075 The Game poster, you can prove to us you are on the set repping the home of the Gamecocks here in Columbia, then if you are one of the first 5 people to do so, you will win tickets to go see South Carolina Ole Miss on October 5th.
Wow. And you may say to yourself,
too.
well, Elijah, Jay, I don't have a T-shirt. Well, come see us on Friday at Columbia Craft. We'll have some.
Well, we'll be giving them out.
Yeah. Now, limited supply.
So you have to be there, yes. Well, and we'll be there from 3 to 6, so I highly suggest.
And they're free. If you want to pay me.
Yeah, we have never charged for T-shirts, but we've never turned down payment. Okay, so that's the deal. I don't want to say, if you come up and you want to give me like a $20 bill, I'll take it. I'm not going to say no.
Dude was at a table. I forget his name. He was a very nice guy and big listener, and we appreciated it. And while we were on, you remember I threw one, and then I think like his wife or girlfriend was like, and I'm doing the arms like, hey, what about me? And so I threw one over there. I'm just throwing T-shirts across the main room there, and
I've always wanted to throw free T-shirts into
that was fun.
People. This could be our chance this Friday.
I promised we would do this, and we have just enough time to do it. Dowell Loggins, the Gamecock OC, speaking today about a 1-minute evaluation of where the offense is at this point, in his opinion. Cut 10. Yes, thank you. Sorry, cut 10.
You're always looking for more at every position, but what I've been excited about is their style of play, how hard they played. They're physical too. The touchdown that Rocket had, you watch Torselli on that pull, he splatters that defensive end. It's a really good player. He splattered too, and the excitement they play together. We're not always perfect, and it's not always the cleanest stuff, but we play hard, and you can see that they're playing for each other. And I think that's really important in football. And you don't get absolute buy-in if the group doesn't believe in their position coach. So I think that starts with Coach Teasley and the mindset that he's created with, 2 new starters and a true freshman that are playing at a pretty well enough to be 2-0 and to get an SEC win on the road versus the number 2 defense in the SEC last year. And it comes down to how they're playing, it's the style of play. There's a lot of things we need to clean up as an offensive unit, but what you can't fix is attitude and effort, and that's where they're different than last year, and that's where we're really pleased. You said, what are you pleased about the offensive line? Their style of play.
Listen, it's a tall order this weekend. As we have said a bunch, it's not a defeatist attitude. South Carolina is a touchdown underdog at home for a reason. But Carolina was an even bigger underdog last week. So if those same things that Dowell just mentioned, because I think you made a great point last week, Elijah, how much of this, in terms of fan and media evaluation after ODU for blocking, how much of it was effort?
Yeah.
And it sounded like maybe from Shane's perspective and Dowell's perspective, a lot of it. And that's what he's talking about. And they seem to clean some of that up. Mm-hmm. So keep that
this
going.
is a matchup where they can move other human beings on the line, because if Nicholls State can do it, you can do it too.
Thanks once again to Matt Moscona and David Cloninger for joining us today. Brad Crawford, 24/7 Sports tomorrow. Looking forward to it. Y'all have a great night.